Good morning, everyone. My name is Aditya, and I would like to welcome all of you to the 2021 Professor N.R. Kamath Memorial Lecture. Before we get started for the day, I would like to invite the President of Color Society, Shri Manik Salunke sir, to give us the welcome address, and then we can get going with today's event. Salunke sir, you're on live. Please unmute yourself. Thank you. Salunke sir, you're on mute.
Yeah. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Please proceed. Thank you.
So, good evening to everyone here. And I just want to say that today's lecture is live on YouTube and Zoom link also. So, I request all the Zoom participants keep them, you keep yourself on mute and video as well as audio. And today's lectures will be available for the participants for the YouTube and Zoom. So I request Aditya, today's host from Homey Company, you take care of those who are joining if there is any problems, and he will definitely take care. So with this again, Mr. Manik Salunke, the president of the Color Society, and I get a great pleasure in welcoming you all to the 2021 Professor N.R. Kamath Memorial Lecture on restructuring of university education in the context of NEP 2020, Education 4.0 and the global trends. I also feel extremely privileged to welcome our speaker, Professor R.D. Kulkarni, Honorable Prof, Vice Chancellor, University of Mumbai, who will be delivering today's lecture. And I would also like to welcome everyone, past president, participants who has made time out of their busy schedule and joined us here today. The Professor N.R. Kamath Memorial Lecture Series was initiated by the Color Society in 1984 as a way to commemorate the birthday of Professor Kamath, which falls on the 8th September, which also coincidentally is celebrated as International Literacy Day. For this year, the lecture we have a long-standing ritual of inviting multiple prominent personalities from various academic fields, and will continue to do so in order to honor the great man as he was a Professor N.R. Kamath. Not many of us present here have had a privilege of meeting Professor Kamath in person, but to say the least, the Professor Kamath was an outstanding teacher and technologist who has had profound influence and impacted the lives of many of his students. He was a real role model and mentor in every sense of the word of his era, and celebrating his birthday once a year, doing what he used to love doing, which is imparting a knowledge to the others, is the best way to honor his memories. Following in footsteps of Professor Kamath, we had to think long and hard about what the topic for this year would be, as we all have experienced in the past year and a half. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives as we know it. Nothing is same as it was before the start of the pandemic, and things are still changing as we speak at the rapid pace. I believe that the year of 2021 will be the forefront of the start to a new chapter in the future of technology, business, and education. The pandemic has forced us to make rapid changes to the way things were done less than 2 years ago. And these changes have shown us the things that we never knew of before and have led to the growth of new business, marketing, and communication strategies, remote workplaces, cost cutting, and efficiency measures, and so on. As the world takes a step forward towards the hopeful and eventual end of the pandemic, things will have change, and in order to come out of the top, we all collectively will have to be adaptable, efficient, and smart about how we move forward to blossom our economic standing. And for this reason, we at the Color Society believe that foundation of the building is the just as important, if not more than the structure that stands above the ground. Hence, we would like to dedicate this year's Professor N.R. Kamath Memorial Lecture to the not the current, but to the future generation of India's workforce. In today's lecture, we have a Professor R.D. Kulkarni guide us through how the current policies and regulations of the country, such as NET 2020 and Education 4.0, pave the way to the education of the future of the India's vast workforce at the university level. Sir has vast experience in academic field. He is alumni of UDCT, now known as ICT and LIT, and worked long time as a director and department head of the ICT North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. He has industrial as well as academic experience for a long time, and will be also learning about how the current trends, both the national and globally, affect the current climate of the education in India, and what the right way is moving forward in order to make India one of the top nations when it comes to our education and economy. I have to say that I'm extremely excited to have a Professor R.D. Kulkarni take the stage and share his plethora of knowledge with us. But before we start with the today's lecture, we have something special planned. As most of you here may know, the Color Society offers a diploma courses in pen technology, and recently, in fact, last year, we have started also the ink technology diploma. We took the online exam in this pandemic situation in the month of August 21, and today we are ready with the result. But before that, I would like to present awards to the students who have excelled this year. On behalf of the Color Society, the first three toppers of the pen technology diploma will get the prize of rupees 3,000, 2,000, and rupees 1,000 respectively. And for ink technology diploma, first rank holder will get amount of rupees 3,000. And we would also like to announce the award on behalf of Lala Lakshman Das Agrawal Education Founded Trust Awards. About this trust, I can tell you the Dr. Harish Agrawal, who is also the committee member of the Color Society, is chairing this trust. This trust was founded in the year 2020 under the chairmanship of Dr. Harish Agrawal, with the objective as to promote educational and social development of poor and weaker section of the society. Running a primary school in the name of Agassiz Public School. Also to the established technical institutional imparting a primary education in the field of science and technology. To operate a laboratory for testing of raw materials, to award the scholarship, stipend awards, and many more charitable activity for the temple and ashram. These are the objective of Lala Lakshman Das Agrawal Education Foundation Trust. And we are very happy to announce that sponsoring the award prize money of the first, second, third, and ranked student of the diploma in pen technology will be rupees 5,100, rupees 4,100, and rupees 2,100 respectively. And the first ranked student in the diploma of the ink technology will receive the rupees 4,100. Now, announcing the results. For the diploma in pen technology, we have two students tied for the third place. and they are Mr. Jaideep K. Patel and Mr. L. N. Ranganath with the score of 80.75%. Congratulations to the two of you. Now, for the second place, we have Mr. Kiran Kumar Raju with the score of 84.75%. Congratulations to Mr. Kiran Kumar Raju. And finally, for the first place of the Pen Technology Diploma, we have Miss Siddhi Rajendra Dhondugade with a score of 93.75%. Congratulations to all four of you. And for the diploma in technology, for the first place, we have Mr. Aditya Dhapre with the score of 82.25%. Congratulations to you, Mr. Aditya. All five of you will be getting your certificates and the sponsorship award will be delivered to your home addresses. Because of this pandemic situation, we'll send it to you by courier. And I would again like to congratulate each and every single one of the students who completed their diploma courses this year. And this year, for everyone's knowledge, we have around close to 60 number of students for the Paint and Ink Technology Diploma who had attended the classes online. And we as your teachers and mentors are immensely proud of you all and wish you the very best in all paths that your life takes you on. We will mail you your grade reports and certificates, and afterwards Namita will send you a physical copy of the grade report and certificates, and she will mail you the result today evening, and tomorrow by morning we'll get it, all the results of the remaining students. I would like to thank everyone for listening patiently, and I wish everyone the very best in these trying times. Thank you very much. Over to Aditya.
Thank you so much for your words, Mr. Salunke. We are extremely glad that you are here with us today. And now, for the next step, I would like to invite Dr. Satish Vaidya, who is one of the very few people who actually got to meet and spend time with Professor N.R. Kamath in person. So I would like to ask Dr. Satish Vaidya to please unmute yourself and share with us some of his memories of Professor N.R. Kamath. So on to you, Mr. Satish, Dr. Satish Vaidya.
Good evening to everyone. I wish you all a very happy Lord Ganesh festival. I interacted with Professor N.R. Kamath as a member of R&D team of Bombay Paints. I thank Mr. Salunke for providing me the opportunity to share some of my memories. We all know that he was a genius in his field. However, that was not his only interest, and he was keenly interested in other topics as well. Let me share a couple of anecdotes. Once during an IPA conference at Delhi, we were sitting in a room, and some context he said, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar is a very simple person. He still uses a bucket for taking bath. This news was published in a film magazine. So he was keeping himself up to date about other activities also. On another occasion, during our technical discussion, I started with an update on the project going on. He interrupted me and asked me, "Did you watch yesterday's Wimbledon match of Arthur Ashe?" I was surprised that he was up to date about tennis also. This just demonstrates that he kept himself updated about the world around him and did not limit himself to just the technical field. Of course, I would be found wanting if I did not share with you some of his insight about technology. I always remember his advice that you develop a product in such a way that your 5 kg trial is reproducible in a 5-ton reactor. This may sound trivial, but just demonstrate that as a true researcher, he always kept the big picture in mind about how something can be scaled up from a lab batch to plant scale. Another thing, I was a member of Color Society, but I feel I joined the managing committee at the recommendation of Professor N.R. Kamath to Professor Shetty and Professor Krishna. And I will be always thankful to all of them. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for your words, Dr. Satish Vaidya. We really appreciate you being here with us today and sharing your insight on Professor N.R. Kamath and all your time that you spent with him. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Girish Nagarkar, who will introduce to us our host and our chief speaker for today, Professor R.D. Kulkarni. So please, Dr. Girish Nagarkar, take the stage. You can unmute yourself, Dr. Girish Nagarkar.
Good evening to all. On behalf of the Color Society, I, Dr. Girish Nagarkar, welcome you all for this prestigious function in the memory of Professor N.R. Kamath, the founder of the Color Society and a guru to many polymer scientists and UDCTians. It is my privilege to introduce to you our today's speaker, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni, who worked as a professor and head Department of Oils, Oleochemicals and Surfactant Technology at the Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. Professor Kulkarni took charge as Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Mumbai on June 22, 2018. Professor Kulkarni pursued his BSc Tech from ICT, Mumbai and MTech from LIT Nagpur with academic achievements such as Professor J.G. Kane Prize, Gold Medal, UDCT Golden Jubilee Scholarship and UGC Fellowship. He did his PhD under the Faculty of Engineering and Technology of RTM Nagpur University. Professor Kulkarni has 27 years of rich experience in the academia and research. He has guided 13 PhD students and 45 MTech students and has 7 patents and many research projects to his credit. He has vast experience in the fields of renewable polymers, nanopigments and green functional pigments, oleochemicals, surfactants, and biolubricants. Professor Kulkarni has contributed his knowledge and wisdom to the academia and industry by giving 65 invited talks and 150 conference presentations. Professor Kulkarni has widely traveled across the globe for professional interactions, conference presentations, and visits to various universities. He also has extensive experience in handling of quality issues, assessment, and accreditation related practices of NAT, NBA, and NIRF. We are very fortunate today that Professor Kulkarni has accepted our invitation to grace this occasion and enlighten us with his lecture. I request Professor Kulkarni to commence his lecture. Thank you very much. Over to Professor Kulkarni.
Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir, you are. And you can proceed with the lecture now. But before you start, I would just like to mention one thing to everyone attending. If any of you have any questions related to the lecture, you can please put the questions in the chat box for the question and answer session that will be conducted after the lecture. Thank you. Please proceed, Professor Kulkarni.
Okay, thank you. President of the Color Society, Dr. Girish Nagarkar, Dr. Satish Vaidya, all the dignitaries who are present on this occasion. Let me extend sincere congratulations to those who were successful in the pen technology, diploma in pen technology course conducted by Color Society. Let me extend sincere thanks to the Color Society for inviting me to be the part of NR Kamath Memorial Lecture Series. And let me extend my sincere thanks to all the dignitaries who are here, who would be probably would like to connect through this talk. Ideally, Color Society represents a platform for industrial professionals who work largely in the field of color and pen technology. And my talk probably would like to connect with reference to the industrial concern for university education. In fact, I won't say it is a talk. I would like to say that what are probably going on currently, what are the emerging changes that are taking place across the globe, and of course, in Indian perspective also. Let me put forth those changes and how probably the university is gearing itself, different universities in India gearing themselves so as to prepare the challenges for these new changes, emerging changes, and that definitely industry relevance is one of the principal aspects of university, higher education, because ultimately the university is connected with the industry in two different aspects. One is like we supply the manpower with necessary skills and mindsets, attitude, aptitude, and values to the industry. That's one part, and really we are supposed to be connected with the industry as university faculty. We are supposed to be connected with reference to industry so as to take up different projects, really share our research areas, research findings, research conclusions to the industry, and that could have been a symbiotic relationship. So definitely industry must have a certain expectations with reference to university education while presenting this particular roadmap of the restructuring of university in the global context in general, and in Indian context in particular, in reference to national education policy, which has been recently put forward by Government of India, and probably the connected changes in education with reference to fourth industrial revolutions. So that's how I just would like to put forward the overall restructuring aspects that probably the university may have to take up, and not only had to take up, universities have already started taking up. The pace may not be as fast as the industry works out to be. Like the industry normally responds to any change with a very fast mode. University does take a little longer time, primarily being a public institution and primarily being a democratic setup. So where all the stakeholders are supposed to be involved for any transformation, any changes, any any possibility that includes changes in the teaching learning environment, curricular aspects, governance model, whatever may be. So we do require certain time, but probably whatever the change that is taken place is normally expected to be very sustainable and durable itself. So probably the talk I just would like to divide in two parts. One, what are the drivers for this transformation of university higher education, so that we will be able to build up the operational excellence in the field of higher education across universities as well as connected colleges. Now, probably with reference to this, we would like to understand that besides hard skills, the students today are required to have a lot of soft skills also, and probably a lot of cognitive skills also. So that requires definitely a dialogue beyond classroom. So you need teaching and education probably beyond classroom, and a scholarly approach to the dialogue beyond classrooms requires development of various open educational resources which will provide transformative learning approach, which will reflect through a continuous dialogue, offering a natural space for dialogue, natural space for probably listening and rechanging, so that you can have transformations in the attitudes of the students who pursue the path of higher education. And as probably World Education Forum points out, that it's not that the way education is imparted, in what way it has been imparted is not just important, but what is more important is how is it imparted, how effectively it is imparted, and in what way it has been taken up by the students and probably delivered by the teachers itself. So you require a lot of development of the tools. And in the process of development of these tools and transformation, okay, now we have four different scenarios, like besides out of these three, naturally national education policy, which is given by Government of India, sustainable development goal given by United Nations, and the education 4.0 connected with the fourth industrial revolution itself. So from that perspective, say what are the changes that probably we are having this. Say one, the immediate relevance that the education is bringing about, not only in professional, but in regular education, whether it is a humanities, sciences, interdisciplinary, commerce, or management, whichever. So we find change in 4 quadrant. So initially, say it was said to be, and the education was said to be more of teacher centric, now which is getting transformed to the learner centric. So what are the expectations of the learner, and in what way the learners can be equipped to the skills which is required for current setups of organization and industries. So in that way, it has to become learner transformation from teacher centric to learner centric. Instead of knowledge centric, okay, instead of just putting knowledge continuously, okay, so instead of knowledge centric, we need a transformation into application centric. Instead of input based, we will have a learning outcome based system. So what are the attributes, or what are the outcome which probably the students can have while getting graduated from the institution or education, so university itself. So it's a complete transformation from input-based learning to the outcome-based learning model. And while I'm talking about these 3 different quadrants, the 4th quadrant is most important. Like what is required to have these transformations, whether it is to be learner-centric, application-centric, outcome-based centric. Okay, so the entire accountability is now based on universities, institutions imparting higher educations, and at the same time, teachers who are supposed to be the driver of this transformation. So previously, the accountability was on student. Now the accountability is on higher education institutions, and teachers are, of course, a part of that. So with this, probably we expect different outcomes that probably the student, whether it's a graduate, or whether it's a postgraduate, whether it's a PhD holder, whenever he acquires a certain degree or certain academic credits through learning in higher education, so he or she is expected to acquire many attributes. Say, for example, discipline knowledge or domain knowledge, we say that the student must have a sound domain knowledge and right proficiency in the discipline with discipline in which the student has acquired a degree. He or she must have a proficiency in research and related skills. along with a passion for lifelong learning. Lifelong learning becomes probably a regular part of education today. Critical and analytical thinking, okay, which provides a capability to the students in terms of analysis, interpretation, evaluation, and a right critique of what is being learned, its utility in the domain of the discipline itself or domain of the professional field. He or she must have an ability to identify, select, and use research techniques to carry out research, and at the same time should have a right understanding about the IPR domain as well. Whenever probably the students after getting graduated moves to the domain of his or her discipline, he or she must excel professionally in a globally competitive world, in an academia, whether it's in academics, whether it's in industry, whether it's a government sector, whether it's a professional sector, or whether it's an entrepreneurial pursuits. So wherever it is, like he or she has to be a creative individual, contributing to the society in particular and nation in general, while excelling professionally. He or she must have a right social sensitivity, right multicultural competence, so that he or she will be socially and ethically responsible citizens who are aware and sensitive to local needs and contribute to the society and nation. While doing so, he or she must have an interdisciplinary bandwidth, because not only a discipline knowledge helps, but probably a capability of understanding, investigating, and evaluating concepts from diverse discipline is definitely an important system. And while doing so, he or she must have a right awareness for the environment and society, so that the productive work connected with the graduate must be sustainable in nature. So with this, probably we naturally, whenever we expect such a system of higher education, so there probably all universities or higher education institutions must look forward how to make it feasible, how to make it possible, and what are the current supporting systems. Okay, so in probably you require right regulatory reforms. We need to think about the overall process of education and may undertake re-engineering in terms of fast technology development. So what we see that whether it's a demands of knowledge economy or knowledge society, or whether it's an internet revolution, it implies that the young learners today belong to a generation that is born and raised in a technology-rich environment. The students are using technology. The students are supposed to use technology after getting graduated, which probably have not been invented so far. It's like in a first year engineering or technology, whenever he or she undertakes a particular domain specific knowledge with reference to technology, probably by the time he or she gets graduated, the new technology might have been established, and he or she has to display a right lifelong learning so as to acquire the skills connected to the new technology. And probably he or she is expected to enter the jobs which are not probably existing while he or she might have taken up admission at first year. While by the time he or she must have been graduated or acquired a certain degree, okay, so he or she may have to enter into jobs which were not existing 4 years back. So that makes really a different sense. So globalization and demands of a knowledge economy and knowledge society call for stress on the need for acquisition of new skills by learners on a regular basis. He or she must have to learn how to learn on a regular basis. At the same time, learn how to unlearn for a few specific cases as well. And probably when we are talking about, we say that unlike when we talk about the industry leaders, okay, say probably the leadership positions at different managerial levels for an industry, they are really well developed with reference to skills. And that is how they move forward to the ladder of managerial scales or levels. But what about the leaders in higher education? Are they really provided with the right skills, right mindsets, right attitude, so as to take up the governance of a higher education? Probably the answer may not be 100% true. Okay, so the leaders of higher education, that's how national education policy says, must have been groomed so as to acquire right skills for governance of the educational organizations, for governance of the university. So I, as a pro-vice chancellor of a university, must have a right skills so as to promote the academics as well as an administration of my university itself. So I must acquire those skills. So the leaders of higher education institutions must groom themselves, or probably the system must exist so as to groom themselves as a right leader, so that they will be able to adopt the technology to improve the quality of education, bring about a lot of reforms in teaching, learning, evaluation, or governance, probably maybe on student support, maybe on best practices with reference to the education, and probably while doing so, we always have said, like while talking about national education policy, simultaneously we need to keep ourselves well connected with the direction of the global educational development agenda, which is reflected in the sustainable development goal of the 2030 agenda for SDG 4, Sustainable Development Goal 4, which says that we need to ensure, while planning for education, while with the help of a due technology and say quality mode, we need to see that we should ensure the education be inclusive, equitable to all. Okay, so we need to see that it is available to everyone who aspires for higher education. So in that way, it has to be inclusive. So for example, while socially and economical weaker sections of the society need to be given a due attention, so that they will be given a right opportunity to take up an education. And at the same time, while having inclusive and equitable education, the quality excellence need not to be compromised. So that is what probably we need to look into. So in a sense, we would like to see that the students through probably right in execution of national education policy, or probably sustainable development goal SDG 4 of UN. Okay, we would like to see that we have right citizens. Okay, today's students are supposed to be today's citizens only. So we need to see that we groom our young citizens in a sustainable way without degrading the environment. And at the same time, we always say that our country, Bharat, has a demographic dividend. Okay, we are having a very good young population. We are large in number of young population, but we need to see that this demographic dividend, how long it will last, for maybe for next 20 years only. So we need to see that this demographic dividend could have been converted into a right system, so that this young generation will get a right values, right attitude, right analytical ability, right employable skills, so that they would be able to have able to contribute to the Bharat or India in its social, economical, and political transformations itself. So that is how probably way forward we are looking for, and that's what is the basis for any restructuring of university education. Now, probably we would like to think about the contribution by the fourth industrial revolution, which has led to the fourth educational revolution as well. we always say that like fourth industrial revolution, they said that has brought lot of automation, and it's always a fear that automation will bring down the jobs, but it's not the case, because no doubt automation destroys certain jobs, but it increases simultaneously productivity, and productivity leads to economic growth, and economic growth in terms creates new jobs, new opportunities. Now, whenever we talk about any technology, how do you get those technology? Okay, we get replacement of the obsolete technology by new technology by people only. So we require a right workforce who are having capability of development of the new technology. We require right skill force, which probably will assist the other people in use of those technologies. And probably we require definitely the people, not only for creation of the new technology, not only to assist the new technology, but also for use of technology also. So any new technology, any new automation, any new, say, it is always said that it doesn't lose job. It in fact only provides or requires labor force, workforce of different mindset and skills. And probably the universities or higher education institutions need to be capable of changing themselves so as to fulfill the demand of the system itself. So probably we come across so many new things under this exponential technologies. Okay, so all of you are from industries only. So I will just skip this slide because this is already a known fact that's only included from the perspective of higher education institution. Now let us look at, based on this industry 4.0, what are the skills that really the students are required to have? What are the different reports which probably tells us so as to undertake right curricular development, right pedagogical transformations. So one, like if you think about UN United Nations Development Program, so which provides a skills report specifically with reference to our country, it says that you require the students who have agility in adoption of and who have an adaptability to changing technology. So like we need an education which probably is connected with agility in adoption of and adaptability to changing technology, which defines skill readiness for jobs in future itself. So, so the skills report says that this particular skills report I just taken from the perspective of the commerce and management students. It's not probably for all faculty. For all faculty domain, okay, the next slide will present what are probably the skills that the higher education institutions need to have, need to provide to the students. Now, why commerce and management? Because University of Mumbai has almost 50% of the students in the field of commerce management. So roughly 9 lakh students are probably pursuing education through university. Of that, 4 to 5 lakhs are connected to commerce and management. So that's one of the biggest faculty, and that's how the primary focus naturally to look at the curricular development and pedagogical aspects, so that we could have curricular reforms which will fulfill the demand of different skills as a data scientist, digital marketing, cyber security specialist, blockchain architect, maybe connected with the use of IoT for digital payments, digital economy, and maybe connected with the next generation economics itself. So we require now connected with this, what are probably the higher education looks into. So the desired skill for these occupations are likely to comprise of skills which were not so far considered. in current curricular development. Okay, I frankly admit, probably we may not have given full attention to that, but now probably we need to see that we have a right curriculum which will promote cognitive abilities, system skills, complex problems solving skills, content skills, and probably in many cases right social skills as well. So this particular report by World Economic Forum, okay, which has probably thought of what are probably the different jobs, what are the, so this is a future of jobs report which we have taken as a basis to undertake transformation over last 1.5 years. And of course, we are taking up many other supportive research papers and findings also. But so like this particular said the research paper finding presents jobs in 3 different forms. Of course, the jobs which are stable and will get continued. What are the new roles which probably the industry 4.0 scenario we will expect to have kind of jobs, and probably what are the redundant roles, and actually the curriculum connected to those redundant roles need to be replaced by curriculum that provides new roles with reference to the future of the jobs report. So this is how probably would have been a right basis. And of course, since we are in naturally what are the industrial scenario in Maharashtra, that becomes an important part. Like government of Maharashtra has gone for a large sectoral roadmap so as to support, of course, not only and promote traditional sectors, sunrise and thrust sectors, but as to at the same time keep themselves well enabled to the industry 4.0 sectors also. So we expect a lot of support from the government of Maharashtra in general, in particular, and government of India in general, with reference to the right roadmap for industry, which would be taken up by university educational leaders, so as to have a right roadmap with reference to the upcoming education itself. And that is how we have an education 4.0 domain connected to the say the industry 4.0. So industry 4.0 say, let us say, like things about a certain use of, let us say, AI for reasoning. But then in order to have a right use of AI, you require skilled force of a right attitude. And that is how the technologies, disruptive technologies such as IoT, big data, and AI are influencing the delivery of the education also. So right now, for whatever previous slides, okay, there probably I was mainly talking about skills that are probably required for new industry development or professional sectors. But at the same time, now when you would like to provide this kind of the skills, in what way you can use technology so as to provide the right right provision of the technology in an university environment. Okay, so it says that probably within the next 5 years. Okay, the pandemic, of course, has accelerated that thing. Said some, like you may say it's always there are certain positive features like that has forced by the pandemic, that the education system has immediately became ready for education 4.0, which otherwise would have taken little longer time. So from last year itself, many universities, colleges acquired the skills necessary for education 4.0. So that is what we say, that within next 5 years, we will be able to acquire a learning module with advanced analytics so as to assess students' data using artificial intelligence, and using that assessment, okay, we could have a right curricular development and transformation in outcome-based, transformation in teaching learning, and evaluation with reference to outcome mode of learning itself. So we expect that with this embracing a learning module, probably the entire field of education will find a lot of changes, transformations, which will provide fulfillment of a technical skills requirement required for industry, and probably conceptual understanding. Okay, the understanding of the or application centric understanding would have been easier with education 4.0, the kind of tools or technology which is connected with education 4.0 itself. So let us say, now what are the advantages of education 4.0 with the use of right tools itself? So one is, of course, accelerated remote learning, education for anyone at any time, any place. Okay, so that's what has proved in pandemic, that the educational institutions made the delivery of the education largely successful to the students who were probably at their native place, and probably with development of a right e-content, the students were given the opportunity to look at the education learning through education modules again and again. So that promoted a very good acceleration of the remote learning at a self-pace. Self-pace is probably very much important, because when you were having an offline mode of learning, classroom learning, probably once the classroom teaching is over, probably you would, whenever you like to refer back, probably that was not possible. But with e-content development, you are able to see it again and again, and one can look at the education modules at the own pace. Okay, so so that makes probably the system to be very personalized learning. Okay, so we know that we can have different labels of the student: advanced learners, low learners, average learners, and each of the students have a different requirements. Like advanced learners probably will require tasks which are very difficult under normal circumstances, so that their intelligence or brain could be challenged with the difficult tasks. And those probably who are slow learner will require a remedial teaching, right finishing mode of teaching. So the personalized learning has very much become possible, and this has resulted equally better understanding of the concepts and overall better results we expect through education 4.0, and it has supported teachers very well. Otherwise, for a offline classroom, teachers taking care of all students was very difficult at a time. But now with this e-content development and the education 4.0, the teachers is able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of individual students, and thereby provide a right personalized learning model. The teacher and the students are well supported in this domain through a right choice of education tools. Learning has become more personalized, and students are getting more hands-on and observational exposure. Experiential learning has become very easier through the use of techniques like blended learning, use of different devices like flipped classrooms. Of course, flipped classrooms is yet to become a reality. And then probably while the teaching learning is connected with a right evaluation pattern, so it needs to be connected with a right examination pattern and assessment. The current student pattern of like currently, what is the pattern? Okay, like you very much stress on memory. Now, instead of memorization, we would like to give more focus on understanding, conceptual development, and so that is feasible with education 4.0. So that's how we say that education, there will be a lot of changes in the exam pattern and assessment, and will give you a right pattern of assessment. We expect now, of course, does it mean that teachers or educational institutions are obsolete? No, in fact, they are becoming more relevant. Okay, they are becoming more, because it's a sea of information. Okay, so the students require a right monitoring, guiding, so that the educational institutions and teachers together can allow the student to have their way through this sea of information, so that makes teacher and educational institutions more important in academic performance of the students. So we expect there are a lot of exciting, enlightening, proactive trends in the education system, and probably the system is required to be prepared for that. Okay, so likewise, say we expect the now coming to the second part. Okay, I hope I have 10 to 15 minutes with me. Now, with these drivers of transformations, or drivers for challenges, how the university itself can transform itself, in what way it can have a forward looking vision. So it requires that it needs to have a right focus on research, teaching, and simultaneously, probably some universities may be having more focus on research. They may be considered as a tier 1. Some universities may have focus primarily on teaching and secondary focus on research. Probably those are tier 2 universities. And probably you can have a simply degree granting colleges who are primarily focused on undergraduate teaching. Okay, so with this kind of a educational systems, we would like to see that the overall educational system will be capable of earning probably a gross enrollment ratio of 50. Now we will come to the data with the current GR in the next few slides. But right now, as I said, like the educational systems must have a right governance model, right leadership, and the leadership must work on a core values of equity, quality, and excellence through a decentralization and participative management, while need to be transparent and accountable to the stakeholders, with optimal utilization of resources which are available. So probably we would like to just consider what are probably the current status, current status in comparison with the global status. So recently, Ministry of Higher Education of Government of India has carried survey, and the report of this survey is just presented to you. So out of like what is the population in higher education of the students? So roughly it is said that in last year it was around what was in enrollment, 3.85 crores of the students were pursuing higher education. And one of the good thing is that the gender bias is getting eliminated. We have almost equal number of male and female students in higher education, with almost 11.4% rise in students, female students pursuing higher education. Sorry, 18.2% rise in female students pursuing higher education, as against the overall growth of 11.4%. Now, current gross enrollment ratio stands at 27.1 in India, with a target of 50 in 2035. So you expect almost doubling of the gross enrollment ratio. Where do we stand in the global context? So let us say like USA, if you think about it, has a close to 90, Germany close to 68. So naturally we need to move fast so as to take up the global pace. Now, with reference to this, what are the probably right problems that are perceived? So one of the principal issue, like in industry, you always consider the cost economics ratio, okay, the cost feasibility ratio. Now, when you extend same cost feasibility ratio to the educational institutions, so what then what is an analysis that indicates, like roughly, as in today we have 1,043 universities and 42,342 colleges. Now, all these are probably one of the severe problem connected with them is say fragmentation of higher education. So remarkably, now what I said, like we have crores of the students who are participating, more than around 4 crores of students are participating. But what is the distribution if you consider? So we find that out of say 43,000 colleges, roughly 40% of the college are running only single program. So that's not a right cost profitability. So they do not have a multidisciplinary approach in higher education. Only 20% of the college, only 4% of the colleges have enrollment over 3,000, and probably 20% of the colleges have enrollment below 100. So why probably education is required to have a right economics angle? Because one, of course, we are looking at multidisciplinary system, not only from the economics angle, but simultaneously from the angle of students also. But multidisciplinary system makes the overall education system really large one, which provides a right thrust, so that you can have a larger higher education system, which will address many of the problems that current higher educational institutions are facing. Okay, with multidisciplinary education system, we can have programs across different disciplines in an institution to ensure optimized resources, right use of optimized resources, integration across discipline. Okay, interdisciplinary bandwidth is always essential for lifelong learning, and so that the overall system can become a real vibrant itself. So from that perspective, we do have certain expectations. Now, multidisciplinary, we are not just thinking from the perspective of optimal utilization of resources, but at the same time, we are thinking about overall development of the students. It is normally said that engineering or professional education promotes analytical part of the brain, while probably performing arts say promote artistic and creative part of the brain. So we like to say that there will be an overall development of the student who have capability to use both sides of their brain, so that they will have creative understanding, at the same time analytical approach, and that will bring a right efficiency of use of resources and resource sharing, both material and human, across higher education itself. So let us say, like here probably we are talking about two objectives. One is known as Mission Nalanda and Mission Takshashila. Okay, so where probably what are the objectives of the Mission Nalanda? Mission Nalanda will ensure that there are at least 100 type 1 universities or educational institutions focusing on research, while at least 500 higher educational institutions with focus on teaching as well as research, maybe by 2030. With a multidisciplinary environment, while Mission Takshashila, the other, will strive to establish at least one high quality higher education institutions, either of type 1, 2, or 3, in every district of the India, so that disadvantaged geographies can have a right access to the education, and then and then only access, equity, and quality could have been well supported. Now we require a university with a vibrant ecosystem to fulfill all those. So we need to see that the vibrant ecosystem must work in threefold, must accept the challenges to work in threefold: expansion, inclusion, and excellence. So expansion is essential to serve the exponential demand for access to higher education, even in the remote areas. Inclusion is very much essential, so that access is provided to all who are aspiring for higher education. Okay, it doesn't limited only to the privileged few. It is accessible to all who have an aspiration for higher education. And at the same time, while promoting expansion and inclusion, okay, we do not compromise on excellence. Okay, so that's definitely requires a right ecosystem for an higher education institution. So for this purpose, we need to see that university campuses must be transformed to become more, to provide more holistic learning environment. We need to have a right dynamics so as to promote relevant studies, research, and innovation on the campus and in the university at large itself. So that definitely requires a right restructuring of the university itself. Like normally we work in a top-down mode, which is not the right one. Okay, so in the initial say in previous one of the few previous slide, I said like participative governance model, what is required. Normally current model works on top to down, like you take a decision and try to percolate it down to the level, but then probably it doesn't give you a right environment. Universities, okay, if you look at the overall system, okay, they are essentially confederations of different departments and functions, and each of department will have their own internal structure, distribution of the decision-making system. So we need to see that the administrative plans, research plans, academic plans should not run centrally. Okay, so, which is top-down approach. Rather, you need bottom-up approach. We need to have a right feedback from the stakeholders and then take up the decision. It may take little longer time, but that is essential for getting a success. Otherwise, what is happening? Like you develop a new system, and probably then every system may have certain pitfall, and probably then though you start thinking about the solution for that pitfall, so which is not the right way. Okay, so probably putting the answer before the problem is the right way. So what we need is to through working bottom-up approach, we need to gain a deep understanding of the problem on the ground and build a solution in a collaborative approach with participation of the all stakeholders. And in many cases, what is happening, we focus more on cost, which is probably not right. Okay, rather the entire objectives must focus on the improvement of the service level of the administrative department, and probably the experience of the teachers need to be promoted so as to promote a right education model. So this is probably will require a lot of restructuring itself. And probably many times what happens, like we think about certain educational goals, we normally involve, we think of students and teachers probably, but many times the administrative block remains neglected, and which is not the right. Okay, so many times it gets overlooked. So the back office structures, okay, which provides the right support to the educational scenario need to be modernized, right? Need to be streamlined. And probably we need to look from the angle of human resource, right? Optimal finance planning, corpus funding, and the good facilities which will meet our the objectives of the domain. And say while doing so, we need to have a structure which will attract teachers of quality, a good talent. So what is happening in current scenario, we observe that almost the teachers who are supposed to deliver the education and conduct research, unfortunately are burdened with administrative domain, so which almost takes up 44% of the workload, which is not right. So we need to have a right HR system so that the teacher will be relieved of this administrative burden and will be capable of pushing itself forward. So in order to see that while you undertake restructuring of the administrative and teaching support, we need to provide an optimal learning environments and support for students as well as teachers. So which requires a continuous development of an upgradation of curriculum, reforms in pedagogy, which will help young people to prepare themselves with the right knowledge, attitude, values, skills, employable skills, and will be able to work as a successful professionals in the domain of their discipline itself. Now, this requires probably a right support. Now, we need to work with a probably limited workforce on an administrative part or probably on a teaching part, but then you need to have a right roadmap. Digitization is a compulsory requirement. So it's a thing that the University of Mumbai is already moved on the digitization platform, and we have tried to identify the various functions, and there and we like to move from centralized server to the the cloud-based computing, cloud-based supports shortly, and different functions are well connected, and probably traditional way of management and probably administrative structuring with reference to the student data, right from enrollment to till award of final degree, including placement. Okay, need to be properly connected so that it will be like a few domains of that would have been connected through a one UID, so that access to the data could have been very much easier. You can have a right information system which creates reports accessible to everyone, like whether it is for public, whether it is for student, whether it is for faculty, or likewise. So in that way, we need to see that whatever we are making ourselves accessible to the public domain, and analyze those resources, carry analyze data, and probably take up the right decision itself. And naturally, through application programming interface with IT module, okay, we would have a lot of academic audit data repository, which will help in analysis, going for right ranking patterns, okay, whereby you can have all domains under one field. Okay, so we expect, as I said, moving from like a server-based system to the hosting on cloud that makes the data more secure. I will just probably take 5 or 7 minutes more, wherein I just would like to present one task which makes us to provide analysis. Okay, when we would like to see that our university becomes a world-class system. So what are probably our understanding? Let us like our back office has carried certain analysis with reference to two universities, one from the USA and the second from Australia. So you will find a very surprising figures. So like say, for example, Vidyanagari campus at Kalina at University of Mumbai has a 243 acres area. But how many students we are probably supporting within education? Say close to 10,000. On the other hand, when I'm talking about an US and Australian university, say the space available with them is very low, but probably they are providing education almost close to the 50,000 with a close to 700 programs as against that of 126 to us. So that gives you, when you calculate footfall per acre, then it comes only to the 40 for University of Mumbai, while it is close to US University for close to 300 for US University, and Australian University close to 700. Meaning thereby we need to have a right planning. So we say that we have capability right now to pursue programs for maybe 600, maybe, so that will take a long time, of course, because we require a right capability for that. But let us say, like, can we have a jump from 126 programs to 300 courses in the next 5 years, so as to support the aspirations of 25,000 students? And as per UGC norms, okay, you naturally require a more built up area. So you need to jump from like 233,000 built up of square meter area to close to 750,000. So that requires probably a right division, okay, like of the 7,50,000 as per UGC guideline, which requires 30 square meter per every student. So for 25,000, it comes around 4,50,000 square meter. Okay, so then you have, and now it need to be more or less like in Mumbai, it has to be residential. So we should be capable of providing at least hostel facility to the close to the 7,000 and close to the 1,000 teaching and non-teaching staff. And at the amenity areas need to be there for need to be available, because that is also a part of learning environment, which is close to 1 lakh square meter system. So 4,50,000 for academic. So let us say 2 lakh square meter for campus development and 1 lakh for amenities. So that comes to the case of 7,50,000. I just organize this. Have I the time, or should I stop right now at this stage?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. No issues.
Okay, so few more slides. Now, probably while I'm talking about, like when I'm telling you how the optimal resources to be utilized, so those previous slides are being taken into as a base for having the right campus development. But then we do find that there are many, almost 54 departments, 11 centers, maybe 25 chairs, okay, who are providing education, research, and extension in different domains. But what is happening now, that has become a decentralized approach, no doubt. But really, when you think about the communication between different departments with reference to optimal utilization of resources, one part. Second part, probably a mathematics students would like to have a domain in music, let us say from School of Performing Arts, or probably let us say like a student acquiring knowledge in Germany, German language, would like to have domain in physics itself. So in what way we could have, we would like to have the right communication. So we have brought a loose school concept. That's how, of course, it's not only connected to University of Mumbai. Now many universities are coming forward with use of this umbrella school concepts, whereby while retaining autonomy. So as I said, it's always a bottom-up approach. So individual autonomy, transparency, accountability of the department should not be compromised, but they need to be brought together in an umbrella school pattern, so that let us say like there are 14 different language departments. So some of them connect to the Indian culture. Okay, so let us bring them together so that there will be right exchange. See, keep in mind, we, as I said, we don't want only to be focused on cost, but say, for example, language domain. Language domain may not have a certain relevance from the placement perspective, but they are essential for the creative mind of the students itself. Say student probably would like to acquire skills in Marathi literature, or probably a proficiency in the Urdu domain. So let us see that, let's bring all these Indian languages under one umbrella, so that there will be right collaborations into the research, and which will prepare themselves to be to have curriculum domain, not only for hardcore MA Marathi or hardcore Urdu students, but they will be capable of supporting students from science domain, commerce domain, who would like to have skills in the literature itself, and at the same time, like those who would like to move abroad, require skills in different foreign languages, and need to be well supported through School of Foreign Languages. And at the same time, the sciences school need to be well supported by the School of Performing Arts, so that their individual abilities, individual hobbies could have been well taken care of. Social science, every scientific development must have a social approach. From that angle, we need to have a right collaboration between School of Social Sciences and Sciences itself. We have now thought of restructuring in one more way. Like, while we would like to see that students are given right domain in the field of their discipline, but at the same time, they should have a right skills with reference to their fields itself, so that they will understand about the society. Okay, societal approach is very much important. What is probably the problems faced by the society? So in order to have that, we have conceived, say, conceptualized 2 credit course, which is really right now given in 9 different domains, and we will extend it to others, so that the students will have different sample case studies, will move to the villages, will spend at least 30 hours for field work, will analyze the problems faced by the society, and will put in their research projects as a future part. Academic bank of credits, probably it's a new concept which has come forward. Okay, so which probably keeps a record of academic credits. Recently, just in last say in July only, Ministry of Higher Education, Government of India has floated that concept. But while it is floated at national level, the university need to be prepared to accommodate them at university level itself. Like if one department, student of one department, if he or she acquires credit in one department and acquires few credits in other departments, can we have a system to club together? So that is what probably in the right academic bank of credits, which will enable students to have a mobility across different departments within the education itself. Probably in future, we may have to think about DU domains like on-demand examination. We may have to think about probably for a paperless mode of examination. We have taken, of course, pilot trials on examination on tab, which requires no say question paper in paper form or answer book. Like everything would have been available on tab itself, and can be. So that is in pilot scale, and we would like to see that that becomes a feasibility in long run itself. And of course, we like to see that the students have right support through DigiLocker system, which is a Government of India. Now, University of Mumbai is one amongst the few universities which have contributed well to DigiLocker facility, and probably students, alumni of University of Mumbai across the world, maybe within 3 to 6 months will be able to have access to their degree certificates through DigiLocker facility as well. Of course, in last part, like we just would like to think about to provide support to the innovation and incubation. Okay, so which requires probably different facilities under one roof, so that the startups will have a right success. Okay, we need to say those who would like to take up startup as a part of their education itself would be supported in different domains. Okay, and whether it is legal part, whether it is IPR part, whether it is internet support, whether it is support with industry, whether it is mentoring, okay, would have been supported well through the entire lifespan of 2 to 3 years for the incubity itself. I just say this particular chart is well known to us, so which makes it is said that the incubity has a success rate only of 6 to 8%, 4 to 6% only. How can we raise probably the success rate, and how can you reduce the failure rate? Probably this is one different step through which they could be promoted, like going through a right scrutiny, probably providing a right support at different level, providing a right business plan, providing good market research consultancy to the students, providing legal finance reports, and going for a periodic assessment, so that ultimately the student will be able to finish within 100%. Finally, I just would like to sum up with two great stalwarts like Swami Vivekananda on education. He says, like, education is not the amount of information that we put into your brain and runs riot there undigested all your life. That's never a objective, but we must have a life building, man making, character making assimilation of ideas. But at the same time, if you look at what Albert Einstein has said, okay, so it's a important requirement of current generation that we need to bear in mind that the wonderful things that we have learned current generation, all of us, in our schools and colleges, is the work of many previous generations, and all this put into our hands as a matter of inheritance. We need to receive it, honor it, add to it, and really innovate it, and on one day faithfully hand it to our children. Okay, in that way, really we will be able to fulfill our requirement of higher education system. Thanks to the thanks to the Color Society for inviting me to be the part of this session. And I say it's open for discussion, of course, as from the dignitaries who really have a long experience in the field of industries, and we would like to seek inputs from them also. So thanks to all. I just would like to see that. I would like to just see that I'm there to have a answer, to provide answers, or maybe probably discussion with reference to the points of questions raised by the dignitaries. Thank you.
Thank you for the informative lecture, Kulkarni sir. Now, if anyone has any questions for Kulkarni sir, please leave them in the chat box, or if you would like to ask him the questions yourself, please let us know in the chat box so that we can have you ask Kulkarni sir the questions. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Aditya, if there is no any question, we can, if we get it, the question, we can divert it to sir, and we'll, reply accordingly if there is no questions. So,
okay. Perfect. That's okay. So if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to message us, or you can also leave a comment on YouTube and stuff, because this is also being uploaded on YouTube currently, and we can get back to you with any of the questions after talking to Kulkarni.
I have one question, please. Can I ask?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Professor Kulkarni, I want to ask you, what is the benefit for the this new education policy to the industry?
That's what I have already explained in my presentation itself. The national education policy, rather than saying new, it's national education policy. It gives a lot of stress on multidisciplinary kind of an education, and provides a lot of scope on minor and majors. So that helps students to be developed themselves in an all-round individuals with a right skill sets. And it has already taken into account the different skills that are required for workforce in the fourth industrial revolution. So the curricular revisions are being given to the individual system. So let us take an example. Okay. Say, for example, if you think about an University of Mumbai, which has almost close to 850 colleges. So whenever you like to take up any curricular development, so then that development percolates down to the different colleges at a very slow pace, and probably different colleges may have individual requirements. So like, for example, colleges in Konkan region may would like to give a more stress on education domain which is relevant to Konkan itself, or probably those which are in Palghar may require a different domain, and probably new Mumbai itself. So with new education, national education policy, we do not have a concept and affiliation. So individual colleges will have capability of developing their own curricular aspects in tune with the local needs and global trends itself. So that's probably the first important advantage. Second important advantage is like there will be say a right regulatory mode uh, currently overall education is regulated by so many different regulatory bodies. Say, for example, an university, if you would like to look at, it has to interact with so many regulatory bodies. Say, for example, AICT for engineering professions, Pharmaceutical Council of India, PCI for pharmacy itself, education, let us say NCT, say Bar Council of India for law. Now there will be one common regulatory domain. Research is very good trust, and it's a outcome-based research funding which will be provided at a very large scale. NRF is being established under national education policy, which is going to support university. And those who are very well, okay, let us say like state universities, those who are performing very well have opportunity to excel well in the field of research, tier 1 mode, and get connected funding and provide support to the students. In fact, just within 5 minutes, I may not be able to pull on all the benefits connected with the national education policy, but it's definitely very diverse and expected to provide students in all compartments of the learning modules.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Does anyone else have any questions for Kulkarni, sir?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm Gulzar Vagu here. First of all, very good presentation, Professor Kulkarni. I mean, it definitely gives us a kind of a view and a picture that we are heading towards a better education policy. So thank you for sharing the details. Just wanted to understand, see, in international education systems, typically, there are multiple colleges, like a medical college and an engineering college will be in the same campus. Today, what we see is engineering college is different, a medical college is different. And then while you have very well mentioned about the multidisciplinary subject aspect, and it was really good to hear, a person who's interested in music and who's a physics can, have both the subjects, domain expertise and all. But let's take the case of, suppose a person, I remember a case of a friend of mine who had gone for a postdoctoral in Canada. No, he was basically a surfactant person who did his PhD in surfactant, and he had gone to do a project with an engineer in a University of Canada, and the subject was on actually pharmacy. So he had, actually the surfactant, I was trying to understand what would be his role, but actually the project was, how a medicine could be aspirated. And interestingly, the professor was an engineer and he was an expert of peristaltic movement of the throat. So, I mean, just to give an example, a very good example of interdisciplinary research where doctors, engineers, and even polymer science or surface studies coming together to work on a project which comes to the aid of a common man in terms of having a very good spray application, which would with the help of surfactant and also with the help of engineering aspect, how it would reach down the lungs. So I mean, just to understand on similar lines, I mean, what would be the research activity or the proposal for the future for the education system in India?
In fact, sir, you have provided answer itself in your question itself. So whatever you are talking about, in fact, that is what is an ambition of the current university system. Right now, we do find, so whenever you have a publication from a research publication from an universities from US or Canada, or whenever you talk about research publications from an Indian university, this is what precisely we find a difference itself, where we find that in like for say in foreign education domain, global domain, okay, we expect a lot of contributions from the different disciplines or domains within a group itself, and within a group you have people who are working with different specializations itself. Now, when we say that we have under one umbrella, like the engineering, medical, pharmacy, let us say like humanities, performing education, everything under one umbrella, then probably the right say collaboration will evolve through. And so with that collaboration, the faculty members or the students will be able to develop their skills in a different domain and will provide a right interdisciplinary bandwidth itself. So that requires to be them together in under one umbrella system. Right now, say what is happening, like say for example, engineering education is fragmented completely and isolated from the medical. Both are monitored by two different systems. And probably humanities monitored by different systems. When you put them together under one umbrella, will give a right. So what you said, in fact, is supposed to become reality in the current university system, and that is what we are aspiring for. In a sense, we are naturally almost 20 years behind the global education domain, and we need to work very fast so as to minimize that difference.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you R.D. Kulkarni sir. We appreciate you giving us your amazing lecture today and sharing your knowledge with us. Now, to end this event, I would like to invite Dr. Mahanwar to give us the vote of thanks. So, Dr. Mahanwar, please take the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Professor R.D. Kulkarni, Vice Chancellor, University of Mumbai, President, Color Society, and dignitaries available on this platform for attending this lecture. I'm sorry, my video may not be clear because I am in a vehicle. So, forgive me for that. I really thank and appreciate the efforts put in by Professor R.D. Kulkarni for giving us such a great information about the educational system status in the country and the future. And I think this was very short time which Color Society has given to him. Last week I had just contacted him and he is ready with such a great information. And it was really helpful, useful for all the state of the society. I thank for this particular informative lecture on this prestigious occasion as a N.R. Kamath Memorial Lecture. Because we always conduct this lecture on the birthday anniversary of Professor N.R. Kamath, and we are fortunate this year that we could arrange this lecture on a specific day, that is 8th of September, which is birthday of Professor N.R. Kamath. So this is Yoga Yoga, what we can say. I thank Professor R.D. Kulkarni for accepting our invitation at 11th hour and giving us such a great information, which is really useful to us as well as for the future generation. And as a token of appreciation and love, we will be presenting this memento to Professor R.D. Kulkarni, and this memento we will hand over to sir in presence or in physical format at his office or at his residence in due course of time. Professor Kulkarni, thank you once again for accepting our invitation. I thank President as well as the committee of the Color Society for making this event, as well as I thank all the attendees who have attended this program in a great number for this particular gracing this function. I thank all the participants. I thank Mr. Aditya Dhapre for making this platform so smooth and making feasible to attend everyone. Thanks a lot, and good evening. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Over to Aditya.
Thank you, Mahanwar sir. And so, the Solanke sir, do you have any words to say for Professor R.D. Kulkarni?
Yeah, same thing that whatever Professor Mahanwar mentioned, last meeting we have decided, and sir had given time to us. So I just want to say thank you very much, sir. And we'll be in touch always, and we'll closely, work together like, Color Society as a representative of the industry and the academics. So in future, we are looking forward to work with you, sir. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would like to say the same thing. Thank you, sir, for attending today's lecture. We honestly appreciate your lecture today. And again, at such a short notice, thank you so much. I would also like to thank everyone who has joined us today, both on Zoom and YouTube. And I look forward to seeing all of you in more of Color Society's lectures. So thank you, everyone, and good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.